What's up, everybody? Welcome to another podcast of Black and White Bodybuilding, where nothing is black and white except for your hosts. My name is Logan Schultz. I've got Paul Conyu with me. Paul, how's your last 7 days been, dude? Yeah?
Um, well, you know, massive subset. So, there's that. But I think right now, pretty good, solid groove. Just keep on doing this with me.
Yeah.
So, that's pretty much it. And you?
Last 7 days. Mostly just getting back into the groove of things. Um, things are, progressing and moving into that off season, where we add in droves, get back into training. Like, I don't remember the last time I took 2 weeks off. And so everything that I'm training is like, I'm training it. I think I told you like 70%, but I'm like extremely sore. And what I would normally consider garbage training, like it's not that great. It's mostly me trying to figure out what movements I want to do and then, progress from there. But yeah, I'm really sore. Like I trained the legs yesterday and I squatted for the first time in, I don't know, 8 to 10 months. And my adductors and everything is just fried. So, but other than that, yeah, I'm doing the same. I'm really pushing for more clients in person or online. Doesn't really matter. As well as moving into the off season, and that's kind of like I feel like after you do it for so long, it kind of goes on autopilot, and you kind of just do it as part of your life. So, mhm.
I just spend so much energy, so much time, so much focus, so much just like mental aspect of prep of just focusing on that one single goal that like when prep is over, I'm just like, all right, let me just relax for like the next 3 to 4 weeks, kind of just go around, visit people, do stuff, do other things that's not bodybuilding
Yeah.
related. Don't be on point with the diet for a bit. And then like the next month is like let's slowly kind of get back into things. I would still find myself sort of like eating a little bit out of the diet, like binge eating here because I'm slowly trying to create that habit that I had during the prep season. And then it takes me to like maybe like the 8 to 10 weeks. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm in the groove. I gained a little bit of body fat, but I'm actually making much better progress because I have this little amount of body fat.
Okay. Yeah, so generally I do a lot of that too in that little rebound period. I'll start, hanging out with friends and going and seeing everybody that I feel as though I don't even know if it's necessarily neglected, but eating and stuff like that. And then, I spent 2 weeks kind of eating and doing whatever I wanted. So honestly, I wanted to get back to the routine. So now it's just becoming really the biggest part is like getting back into the habit of being as prepared as what I was during prep to make sure that I don't have hiccups. You know what I mean?
Yeah, agreed.
So
Yeah,
yeah, that's gosh, I'm sorry, man.
you're good. You're good. It's tis the season.
Yeah, dude, it's been like it started right before we left
Mhm.
Spain, like the sinus drainage, and it's just been horrendous ever since.
Yeah. It's kind of what my
So,
son has right now. He's been sick literally like every single week. So my wife has to take like I guess like days off from work. Last time she took 10 days off from work. Now she took 5 days off from work. And he's just consistently just getting sick after like, I like the kid, I love the kid. It's fucking on the schedule.
hey, boy, I need you to get your shit together. You're fucking up my schedule, man. This doesn't
Yeah.
work for me. Don't,
I need to stop it.
yeah, yeah. Don't you wish it worked like that? Right? So, what is so you're moving into off season. hoping to place top 5 at the Olympia. I know that we had previously talked, as far as like what the plan was and how you were going to approach it. I'm curious as to if anything has changed as you're digging into the actual process. Like before we had discussed and you were kind of like a little bit more on point as far as, not necessarily doing the macros, but it seemed like you were following an actual meal plan. And stuff like that. Are you continuing with all of that, or did you move back to macros, or kind of how's that looking?
I'm still following the meal plan, but I'm so good with doing macros because I've prepped all my life with macros that I know like what to plug in, what to eat. It's kind of the exact same thing, but I just still track it just because I like to see numbers. I don't like to like diet and then I just see like 10 ounces of this, 5 ounces. It freaks me the fuck out because I don't know what are the actual calories or like carbs. So I even if I have a meal plan, I somehow find a way to figure out the exact macro. But like, no, I'm now back onto the point where like meals and order oats, pre-workout, post-workout, with 70 grams of vegetables with some salt, a little bit of electrolytes in there. And then I walk to the gym for 30 minutes just so I can kind of deplete whatever carbohydrates that I ate like an hour before. And then I chug in the entire bottle of the dextrose powder with water. And then I just keep on drinking that all the way through it as I'm training. So for me, nutrition doesn't really matter much, but it does in like the little sense with certain things. Training kind of just like is on autopilot. There's one thing that I never tend to like stray away from. That's training. Like nutrition, I can fuck around with. I can do whatever I want. Everything works as long as the goal is like be in a surplus, don't get fat. That's it. That's literally it. So the training is actually the most important thing, and most of my lifts are going up. I'm improving. My physique's looking better. I was holding a little bit more water, more fat last week because I was kind of like going a little bit off the diet for a bit. But then this week, I'm just like, okay, I don't want to do that. Terrence, the recent picture looks fucking. So that was literally it. I was like, yeah, it's gonna stay on point. But everything's kind of just sort of been now all the way to.
Okay, I'm sorry. Because of your fan, your voice got really low. You said you're holding 215 pounds and you'll hold that until prep starts?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. So that's about what I kind of do. So Barry gives me a plan, but in that plan, it has all of the calories listed out. And I know, like in my brain, that he counts 100 grams of rice as 25 grams of carbs. So I don't think that that's 100% accurate if you look at like nutrition label.
2 grams of carbs.
For 100 grams of rice, cooked, yeah, cooked, yeah. So, so I know that that's how he counts it. So I kind of just base things on that, and I do also swap in and out foods as far as like he doesn't change the foods that's in my plan.
Mhm.
I just will like if I want potatoes or if I want rice noodles or if I'm going to eat elsewhere, right? I just match the macros to that meal. So I do something very similar to what you're talking about, right? And that it's mostly just on plan, and then it's like you substitute in and out. So that's cool. You're gonna hold 215 pounds until prep starts. Okay.
Yeah. So like, I don't think it's necessary, but I don't think it's necessary. So I want to hold like 215 and just get leaner over the next 3 to 4 months as I'm holding that 215 and just recomp into it. So this way I'll build a good amount of tissue because what matters right now is like I have enough substrate, enough calories to kind of grow the muscles that I need to grow. Cool. I just got to train and keep those calories where they're at. If I need to bump them up, maybe like by 50 grams of carbs, but it's very seldom that's going to be an issue. But at least it wouldn't let the body fat get out of control. If the body fat kind of gets out of control now, if I keep the calories at where they're at, then I'm just going to recomp into it. Because if I start eating more and more and more and more food, I'm just going to add more and more fat. So we want to hold a solid 215. And then after that 215 is being held, my contest prep is 24 weeks. So we're going to start pulling things down at that 24 weeks all the way to 60 weeks. 205, 210. I grew up on the throw. My weight cap was 204. If I don't, my weight cap is going to get 97. So, more people rather big.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, as long as you find that balance of those calories right, but as you do add tissue on, at some point it's either you're going to have to add food, or you're going to be in a calorie deficit and you're going to start getting leaner and leaner, right?
No.
I mean, if you're towing that line,
yeah, you're gonna add food, but you don't need to be a big. You don't need to have like a
no,
big
it doesn't need to be a lot, right? Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we're talking about minor bumps as you add, like if you notice you're getting leaner all of a sudden, it's like, okay, a minor bump in food, because you're kind of towing that line of being in a surplus and being in a calorie deficit, of just being enough food to where your body is relying on that food, and it has enough food to grow. But it's more so not being in a calorie surplus of like, in so much of a calorie surplus that you're putting on fat. So as you're towing that line of maintenance calories, if you will, at some point muscle tissue is added. So therefore, maintenance comes up. Technically, at some point you would be in a calorie deficit, right?
technically, at some point, 30.
I can't hear you. Yeah, at first I could hear you a little bit, and it's just gotten worse and worse.
At first, like you grow into those calories.
There we go.
It take a while
Mm-hmm.
sort of, and still be lean. If the muscle do tend to be greater and the body needs more total energy, I think an extra 50 grams to 100 grams of carbs would handle that, because it's still not a big surplus, but it's just enough to get you over there. I think when we talk about like the discussion of like, do you need to get calories super high to build tissue or to bulk or whatever, you don't most of the time. But you just need to be at a slight surplus, because I think what matters the most is just you have energy substrate for training, and you have protein intake pretty high, and that should cover most of it. But also we're on drugs, so that kind of like changes a whole lot of things.
It does. I think that a lot of people don't realize that when you're in an off season and when you're running drugs and your food is really high, you may not always need as much protein as what you would when you are, prepping, right? You have a ton of carbs in, and, carbs are protein sparing as it is. And then you have an uptake, you have an increased ability for protein synthesis. I'm sorry, my mind is, I know what I'm trying to say, but for some reason words aren't coming to me right now. So that's why I'm speaking really slow. I feel weird. But yeah, so protein synthesis is already higher than what it normally would be, right? So arguably you're utilizing the protein that you're consuming better. And I know
less protein when you're
yeah. And which a lot of people seem to think they want to increase the level of protein. And I'm like, you can, but I think that if you have so for me, for instance, once I get to a certain level of protein, my digestion goes downhill fast. Okay. So we've actually decreased my protein intake over time. I have clients that eat more protein than me, and they're 20, 30 pounds lighter than me, but their digestion is perfectly fine at this level. Mine is good at the level that I'm at, but like my protein intake is not nearly as high as some other people's, most other people's. So I think that there is such a fear of losing muscle tissue that people overshoot protein sometimes, just for the sake of it.
There is, but I also think it's the lack of knowledge and how protein
Mm-hmm.
but ultimately the idea of surplus still is in place. So if you were to eat like more protein in general, that's still over your surplus, so there's a higher chance of you getting more fat. But there's also the chance like it takes the protein more time, more energy to break down. So it actually breaks down like a much slower rate. And then you still in a surplus. So you're gonna put on more fat, even if you have more protein. Now, the one way where I mean, this is just theory, just me thinking out loud. The one way where you may be able to manage that is if you just increase your overall volume to an insane amount to cause so much muscle damage that you can now utilize those extra protein. Then that's kind of done. I think you're
I was muted. Good call. I'm sorry. Okay. So I think a big part of it is also like, are you digesting it properly? I think way too many, and I think that we're getting to a place now where it's better, but way too many people seem to think that um, having bubble guts is a normal thing, like in bodybuilding. Like, oh, it's just the amount of food I'm eating. Like, like that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. I recently posted a TikTok, and some random guy asked me a random question that had nothing to do with the TikTok. But basically, he was just like, my digestion is crap. What can I do to fix it? And I was like, first off, that's a very vague question. I can't just answer that right off rip. But the one thing that I can tell you is that if you're not eating a solid whole food diet and you're not eating the same thing every day, that's the starting place. You need to do that first, right? And he responds with, well, I eat my macros the same every day. They're 600 carbs, 220 grams of protein, 80 grams of fat. It was somewhere in that ballpark. And I was like, well, my thought process is that if you're eating 80 grams of fat, it can't all be trash, right? Because that's not a ton of fat. That's a reasonable amount of fat. So it can't be complete trash. But if you're doing an if it fits your macros style and your digestion is garbage, you need to eat the same thing every day at the same time and then determine if there's actual issues going on. I just, I don't understand why that was such a foreign thought. There was a lot of people commenting stuff like, oh, you need to run a gut protocol. You need to do this and that and this and that. And I'm like, we're talking about the peak of the pyramid here. Where's the foundation? Is this all people care about anymore?
well, it's what the market has been selling. But the gut protocol thing was like 5, 6 years ago, where it was heavily promoted and everyone was getting like their gut protocol certification. But in reality, all that was, it was taking advantage of bodybuilders who ate the same thing every single day on drugs, and on top of that, with stress, which is being hardcore bodybuilders.
Mm-hmm.
So that overall stress was kind of impacted the system, which created this whole community of people when they fix their gut protocol.
Yep.
We rarely ever see regular people
Because they have a good, and it doesn't even, what's funny is that it doesn't even matter what their diet consists of as to if they're like, if they're eating fast food or if they're eating whatever it is, right? They have such a variety of food within their diets that I think that's what keeps it mostly a track. Whereas, yeah, you're right. Like a lot of bodybuilders, especially in the off season, especially if you're trying to put, if you're a male and you're trying to put on a lot of body weight. I don't know so much about female. I don't coach a ton of females. I've been around them, but I'm going to speak to males specifically. We tend to push food, and as you're pushing food, you get lazier and lazier with how you cook it because it's like, I just got to get this down. Um, not realizing that you're actually causing yourself a massive hindrance in your digestion, your ability to consume the food, like, how palatable it is. That all plays a role in digestion, and you're just setting yourself up for failure if you're doing that lazy method, I think.
I 100% agree. But I think bodybuilders have such a stable diet every single day that the one thing that um, that's why I also like to do macros because it allows me to have different variation of foods. Like, dude, I've prepped almost all my life eating different variations of foods going into prep. We can say it's genetics, but I think if you understand like how food and how nutrition works and the caloric balance is sort of what needed, and you're not like allergic to anything, you have like any like reaction to any specific food, and you have like different variations of food, as long as you're in that deficit, granted, if you I wouldn't even say like you have to eat like a healthy balance, but it's probably a high priority to eat a healthy, balanced, nutritious meal. But as long as you're in that deficit and you're consistent with it, you're still going to get to your goal.
So I want to specify one thing really fast, just because some people are, who, when you're saying that you were following an if it fits your macro style during prep, you're not saying that you were eating cookies and protein shakes all day, right? You were still eating whole foods, the foods that we would normally eat. You just may not eat the exact same meal at the same time every day or stuff like that, right?
Yes, that is 100% correct. I don't have food to find cookies. Of
Obviously.
course, I would eat that. But then that's the thing. I think people don't realize that they can't do that. You
Yeah.
can't have cookies and then try to fit into your macros when you're in a deficit. It's not
Mhm.
going to work. It's going to blow your entire calories out of proportion to where now you may have this little sweet craving, but then like your hunger goes up and then the food starts getting out of whack. But
Mhm.
no, I would always eat like a balanced, nutritious meal. Just like if I don't want to eat rice, I just can eat rice. I just eat
And
potatoes. Eat
yeah,
something
we're
else.
we're
That's okay.
talking about meals that you would give a client, right? Like,
I give client very balanced, nutritious diet compared to what I eat. That they don't eat what I eat. I like.
but you know what I mean, though. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
we're
yeah, yeah, yeah,
talking, we're not talking about anything that's ridiculous, right?
yeah. one hundred
Yeah, I feel like
percent.
it
It's just when I have if it fits in macros, it's just the macro basis of the calories. Those
I mean, it's very similar to what I do. I mean, I will typically substitute in and out foods and alter a meal. Now, I do eat it at the same time every day. And typically my protein is always the same, but I'll change in and out the carbs and the fats. And I typically do that up until like 8 weeks out ish. Like this last year, I was eating cereal pre workout until like 8 to 10 weeks out,
yeah,
just because in the off season cream of rice did not taste good, and cereal is super easy and it takes 3 seconds to do.
pretty
Now,
much. Just thinking.
yeah, exactly. Now I want to see this year what happens if I don't do that. As far as like eating cereal goes, not necessarily substituting in and out foods, but yeah, like there's got to be some kind of variety in the diet, and there's got to be, whether people believe it or not, you enjoying your food is the first step of digestion and your body wanting to accept that food. It's just like I always use the times when I'm like in the off season and I have a meal sitting in front of me and I take 2 bites of it and it almost makes me want to vomit. Like I feel so full, but then I'm like, I really need to eat something. So I'll go get Chick-fil-A and I will have no problem eating that. So was it that I was full and I was hungry or my food wasn't palatable? I just needed a change in food. I needed some variety in my diet. Um, so it's like that's the first step of digestion. And I think once you realize that and once you apply that to the off season, you're going to have a much more productive off season.
Yeah, because you have more food than more variation. But it's a matter of like controlling how much variation you can have in and not go too crazy. Because, like you said, like if you enjoy the foods that you're eating during your off season, keep those food. Maybe switch a little bit of variations here and there based on healthy food choices. But then when it's time for your contest prep, you just eat less calories of the same food.
Yeah.
It's literally it. It's like I personally think. Okay, this is what I think. Everyone's ways of thinking is a little different. I think uh, contest prep can be difficult, but only towards the last 4 to 6 weeks. But
I agree.
as long as you're consistent with see changes, that's completely fine. That would vary. Some people don't seem to do that, which is okay. They want to be straight at every point, and they don't want to like go to their show place where they don't want to place and just be like, oh, I should do. But if we understand the basic of calories out and drugs, it's be always about having food that you enjoy, not trying to force yourself to eat certain foods you enjoy. It's going to help.
Yeah.
If you're not enjoying the diet, you're definitely not going to be a good spot.
Yeah. So I absolutely use that approach in the off season. And I more so experimented with it this past year. But one thing that I did do during, and I've talked about this before, one thing that I did do during this prep is that I made my food taste good, but I didn't make it hyper palatable like I would in previous years. So in previous years, I would use a lot of, sugar-free sauces and marinades and stuff like that. And I would just make them what I would call hyper palatable.
Okay.
They tasted so good that when I was craving them, and that made the hunger way worse. So this year, I just made them taste good. They were enjoyable to eat. And I also think that there is something to it that the leaner you get, the hungrier you get, the more your body, the better things taste. And so like things that may not taste good in the off season taste good during prep. And it's because your body wants the food. It wants the calories, right? So it kind of changes what is good to it. So if you don't make it hyperpalatable, I think that it doesn't cause. I think hyperpalatable foods cause a spike in hunger response, whether it be mental or physical, and so it makes prep easier.
When you were saying about like, I forgot what it was. You crave certain foods when you're lean.
Oh yeah.
Bro, dude, I don't know what it is, but when I'm prepping and I'm like the last few weeks in and my carbs are low, my fats are like 40, 50 grams, but my protein is ridiculously high, bro, I just have 2 tablespoons of peanut butter and just dip it with chicken and then fry it.
Fry it?
I put it in the skillet with the peanut butter all covered all over the chicken,
Okay.
and then I just kind of shake around, add a little bit of salt.
Not raw chicken though, like.
Well, no, not raw chicken, but
cooked
chicken.
Like cooked chicken. You're just like heating the chicken up, but you like.
No.
That's funny.
Chicken, but it's like peanut butter on top of it, a little bit of oil, like a little spray oil.
Yeah.
And then just like mix it around, and it's like tasting like. I know it's good. I always do that one.
So, I figured out a combination. Not this past year, but the previous year when I was prepping. I was eating chicken, peanut butter, banana, rice, and hot sauce
Together.
Oh yeah.
Oh, nice.
It was so good.
I know. Oh, dude.
It was so good. But that's what I'm talking about. Like dry ass chicken tastes good when you're lean, like everything tastes good. There's no reason to make it taste better. Yep. It's just going to cause your hunger to be worse. It's just going to cause you, especially if you're a first time competitor or second or third time competitor, it's just going to make you more likely to cheat on your diet.
Well, not necessarily. So what I usually do before the stupid study about you can eat more than 100 grams of protein and rather fucking one sitting, people are idiots. I had like a pound of chicken, and I would eat it with peanut butter and I would mix a pound of thing, which is roughly about like 100 to 120 grams of protein, and it would keep you satiated for 4 to 6.
That's a lot of protein.
Yeah, dude.
I mean, if you were eating it all at one time, your stomach is physically full, right?
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I'll only have like 3 meals.
Okay. I mean, as long as it wasn't causing a hindrance in digestion, like,
So good.
it's all good. Yeah.
It's all good. Crazy shit, man. Fucking content.
That's hilarious. I mean, oh. Did you see my story about an old buddy of mine from high school asked me a question about semen retention? Did you see this?
Is it still there?
I don't know. I don't know how long it's been. I don't think so.
Okay.
But he basically sent me a message on Instagram and he says, "Hey, dude, um, does semen retention cause you to gain weight?" And his theory was basically like, "I think it does because I had sex last night and then this morning, and my gym performance was way I was way weaker." And I was like, "But you do realize that your gym performance was decreased because you expended a bunch of calories having sex before you went to bed, and then you woke up and had sex again, expended a bunch of calories, and then went to the gym, versus not having sex and going to the gym." Yeah. Yeah. Like, come on, dude. We're worried about semen retention? Like, yeah, you will have an increase in weight, about 100 grams a day,
Yeah.
because you're not getting rid of it. Like,
I mean, it's a good way to lose weight if you have find like a chick that does that every day.
oh my God, dude.
Like,
The funniest thing, what's funny is this guy is, if I were to say, if you were to tell me, hey, somebody's going to ask you this question in a week, out of everybody you've ever met in your life, who would it be? I would have guessed him.
oh, really? It's
Yeah,
that bad?
it's just that guy. Like, he's a great guy. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
He's a great dude. He's just that kind of random person.
Fair enough.
Or he was growing up. I don't know what he is today because we don't really talk. But growing up, he was like that.
I remember being in high school, and people thought
They thought what?
like a bowling stuff.
Oh,
Yeah, that was so dumb.
the jokes about like bull semen. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was like, what's going on? Where you guys get that? You guys have to this thing, man. Like, you doing that like with deer antler?
Oh, that the deer antler velvet or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's what it
Oh my God, I remember. I worked for a franchised GNC between my freshman and sophomore year of college, or I took a semester off. Maybe it was during that semester. And I remember selling that stuff, and I had this whole explanation of what it was and how good it worked and everything like that. And then, I was just naive, to be honest with you. I didn't actually realize how full of shit it was.
Yeah.
Years later, I felt bad about some of the things I sold people at that store, man.
Yeah, dude. I worked at GNC too. I didn't last long because my moral ethics when it comes to like supplementation is kind of like nobody would ever sponsor me.
Back then, I genuinely believed that the stuff that I was saying. So it wasn't a moral dilemma
It
for
wasn't
me.
even a lie. Like,
Yeah, it wasn't until later on when I learned like this is bullshit that I felt bad about it.
I worked at GNC. I basically just told everyone about everything else.
Hey, yeah, it's not the best sales policy.
But I didn't say,
Yeah. You did work at Yonks for a little while though.
yeah, I worked there for because back then I was just like at the apartment most of the time, just working, coaching. I had like 20, 25 clients at the time. So I didn't really like, needed it, but I was like, oh, I'm new to this area, so I might as well just like work there and talk to people.
Yeah.
So I mainly just watched the animated.
Yeah. I mean, it's also good for you to get out of the house. But I mean, that clientele that you were dealing with is vastly different than what you're getting at a GNC, right? Like, I don't know about the GNC you worked at, but I worked in a mall. And so I got random walk in people all the time. As a
Yep.
matter of fact, most of it was not people that had any experience doing anything.
Yep. That's exactly where I work at a mall
Yeah.
too.
Did you? Where'd you grow up at?
Um, I grew up in Pennsylvania.
I didn't know that.
Don't worry.
Okay. I've heard of the areas. I don't actually know where they are, but I've heard of them.
She
Okay. So I want to confirm that I understood that because your voice was really low. So in 2002 is when you moved from West Africa to Pennsylvania,
Yep.
which you would have
Born
been
and
what?
raised in the playground where I spent most of my days.
Okay. So you would have been what, like 10,
8.
8?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you'd have been 8. You moved here. You moved to Pennsylvania, and then you said in 2020 or 2021 you moved to Texas.
2021, I moved to Texas.
Okay.
2020, my apartment burned down, so I didn't have a place to stay for like 3 months.
Yep.
That's when my mom's friend invited me to a place to stay there to get.
So why did you move to Texas? Sorry, I can barely hear you. Yeah, just give it a second. It'll be fine.
I would say this like Pennsylvania.
Okay. And you had already met Charles, right?
I have never met Charles. I talked to him through
Yeah.
like Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a fucking wild way to kind of leave the states and just
Yeah,
meet
dude.
somebody.
Let's just go move in with some guy that I've only talked to a couple times on the internet. Move halfway across the country.
Worked out great and it didn't.
Until it didn't. Yeah, dude. Oh my god. Oh my god, Paul. Paul. I mean, look, I'll say this. It could have been much worse, and it could have happened much sooner. You were still alive, and you were in a good place today. That's all that matters.
Well, I was the one covering those things. But you know, man, like I'm just that kind of person where like I know it's gonna be all right. So
Mhm.
where I know the most of the time it's all right. I have a plan already in mind to where everything's going smoothly. That's why I was like working extra hard, fines and all that stuff. 'Cause I didn't want to be there forever. I just wanted to be like, let me just try to get some things together, save some money because I didn't really have much of the time. And then it turned out all right. And then I met my wife. No. I met my wife when I was in PA,
Okay.
actually. And then I moved away, and then she had to go back to Poland. Jesus fucking Christ, man.
How did
She
you
had
meet
to
your
go
wife?
back.
So she was here in the U.S.
Yeah, she was in the U.S.
Okay.
when we met. Met around for like probably like God, in like 6 months, and then she had to leave because at the end of that year, I think it was like 2020, she had to go back to Poland because COVID was happening. She stayed back like for 3 months prior. Right. She left January.
Okay. To be actually travel back.
So she kind of, we just do whatever we could. And then eventually I got my US passport in 2022. And then that following month, I went straight to Poland for an entire 3 weeks. And then like I came back. And then after that, she came back and visited me. And then we went to like Brazil or whatever. When we were about to go to Brazil is when she got pregnant. And then we're like, what do we do? We're so far away. How are we going to work this out? I was like, I don't know. I guess I just moved to Poland and I'm here.
You know what's funny? I'm very much it is what it is, go with the flow kind of guy as well. It's like,
Yeah.
as long as I'm not dead, it's gonna be okay. Like, it didn't kill me, so like, whatever it is, it's gonna be fine. It'll pass. So, yeah. Um, I can't hear a word you're saying right now. Something about one person.
Yeah.
My wife is very much a planner.
Yeah, mine too. I don't like it.
It's a point of controversy for us too sometimes. Thankfully, I've rubbed off on her a bit, and so she's gotten better
Yeah.
about like when things don't go her way or as planned. Like she's gotten better about it.
Mm.
But yeah, she's still very much like, this is what we're doing. This can't change. It's like so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thankfully, though, we are both on time people, and so um, we both very much like to be on time. And as a matter of fact, we're probably almost always early. So thankfully, we at least agree on that. Because I think we'd kill each other.
That's sort of the same thing with my wife, except we both got me. Yeah. Yeah. I tried. Until like recently. Until like this last prep was when I was like fully like bodybuilding regimented.
Yep.
Where it's like ate the same thing, do this, do the cardio, do the walks, do everything right on cue. I mean, I saw like the success it brought. It was great. But I've never been like that. It was always just kind of like just do what you can because I've always been on like survival mode.
Yeah.
Almost all my entire life. So like as long as I'm surviving, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah. My wife has rubbed off on me too, and I've gotten a little bit to the point. So it's like we're almost meeting in the middle a little bit. But I feel like that's what a good partner does. It kind of helps you balance that out, right? So I'm curious, how much of West Africa do you remember? Okay.
I did that. Like the only thing I remember was relatively young. I don't remember much of what went on, but I remember basically being part of that and trying to escape, find somewhere to for safety with my mom. And most of what happened during that time kind of like was kind of a blank. There's some instances where it was a little bit more gruesome, where people, whatever.
Mm,
So I had to experience that where I saw that happen in front of my face, and someone was happened to someone.
yeah.
But then after that, the only thing I remembered was just eating chocolate at the stadium and all the military guys from either United Kingdom or European Union came in and they gave us chocolate. And that's why I love chocolate.
So that's the only two memories you've allowed yourself to remember.
And that's why when I did, it's all about chocolate.
It's a trauma response. Wow. Okay. I mean, that's interesting. I mean, I feel like now I think maybe we have talked about a little bit of it before, in passing, nothing like direct, but I feel like I knew a little bit of that as far as like, seeing some of the things that you've seen. Um, yeah, that's rough. I imagine it being kind of like a movie as you're going through like a war scene. That's kind of what I pictured.
You know, you know, after a while, after like thinking about it and how it happened, it really didn't have any like traumatic responses on me personally as a person.
Hmm.
Um, because that's why I was like, I purposely blocked it out because the reason why I got into lifting was because like maybe there was maybe a traumatic response when I was younger,
Yeah.
but most of that was channeled into training and just going really hard into lifting. Funny story. I think it was like in 2017 or 2018, somewhere around there, when I I might have to wait for this to fail.
Yeah. Go ahead. That's fine.
Um,
Not yet. It's almost there.
once I was done, I started, and I would do that for every single session that I was training till it got to the point where it was like 2017, 2018, and I like tried to do that and I couldn't do it anymore. I was like, what the fuck?
It no longer had an emotional response for you.
Yeah, so I was
You
like, what
had
the fuck do I do
desensitized
now?
yourself to it. Yeah, you desensitized yourself to it. That's interesting. I actually
Yeah,
used to do something similar.
yeah. So like, I left the gym. I was like, I don't know what to do. What do I do?
I gotta
but
find a new way to channel rage.
yeah, and then I just kind of just had more of a passion for lifting right after that.
Yeah. So I used to, not before my session, but before a heavy lift. Because like throughout college and stuff, I was training like I would do, squat, bench, and deadlift, but I almost always worked up to a heavy single. I don't know why, but I did. And so before any heavy lift I would do, I would spike I would say at a mini adrenaline rush by thinking about negative things in my life at the time, right? Like, whether it was girl problems or family problems or financial problems, whatever it was, whatever made me really angry at that time, that point in time in my life, I would think about it and I would channel it to get my adrenaline pumping and get my heart racing and stuff like that every time until I realized that it was very unreliable to do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like it was very weird for me when I got to the point where I couldn't do that anymore. I was like, okay. And then it took me like probably like a few weeks to kind of like get into the groove of like a new way of like doing things.
Yeah.
And I think it was at that moment that I was like, okay, I can't use bodybuilding for whatever issues I have. So I'm just gonna have to just enjoy it. And then I started just enjoying the whole bodybuilding process of training, dieting. But I mainly always fell in love with training because training was just so fucking fun.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean,
I could hear you at first, and now I can't hear you. Mm-hmm. Yep.
still sort of binged, or not, I wouldn't say binged, but I overate quite a bit like the last few days,
Yeah.
and I would still place pretty good. Um, that's why sometimes like when people say like it's genetics, it's not. I think it's more the most important thing in bodybuilding is training. You can train, you can do whatever you need to do, like pretty hard to the highest level and build as much tissue as you can. As long as your training is on point, your food will support what you need.
As long as it's high enough, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Even if it's in a deficit, it'll just maintain what you need.
Yeah. I mean, so what is it that you loved about training? Like, what made you fall in love with it so much? Like for me, it was I think the recognition of my physique changing. I think that's what I loved most because I went from being that real skinny kid to I wouldn't even say muscular. Like looking back now, I was still skinny, but like being recognized as someone who was more muscular, and that notoriety that came along with it, um, and that overall like stature, I guess, is what hooked me in the beginning. Obviously, that didn't continue, but what was it for you? What is it? What is it about training that you fell in love with?
The pump.
The bump is like coming.
Like literally, dude. From the first moment, I don't know if that's why I was wondering if people experience this. From the very first moment that I went to the gym for the first time, I had such an ungodly pump. It was ridiculous. Like I have a picture where like I look like I've been lifting for years, but like my pump was so big that I just brought back you just had such a solid pump. Figures like it doesn't take much for me to get a good solid pump. Like one hard set will give me a really good pump.
Speaking of triple.
That's literally it. but, But mainly it was that the pump was the thing. But then like it became more of just like pain, just loving the idea of going to the gym and just everything is tightened up. You feel pain right after you're done. The training was nice. You're progressing as well, but
Mm-hmm.
you're seeing your body kind of like changes and adapting
Yep.
to something completely different. And the only way you can do that is by kind of like training a certain way, training a
Mm-hmm.
certain muscle group, learning how this works, contracting this certain way, and then eventually get into the goal that you need to be. But the sucky part about it is like no matter how much you train or how much you look at yourself, how hard you train, you'll still always look back.
Bruh. I swear sometimes if I walk, the only time I ever realize how big I am is when I walk by a mirror that I wasn't expecting to walk by. So if I catch a glimpse of myself when I'm not expecting to catch a glimpse of myself, I'll be like, what the fuck was that? Right? But like I have a mirror right here, and as soon as I walk into it, like it's like normal, right? It's whatever, right? I still think of myself as this small kid. But yeah, that's the only time I ever realize how big I actually am.
Yeah, like I know I'm big, like I know I am,
Yeah,
but like in my mind, I feel like I'm not as big as I want to be. Of course, that's everyone's feeling,
yeah.
but like I feel the smallest when I'm on prep and I'm on stage because when I'm on
Oof,
stage,
because you
granted,
are.
I look like I look really really big on
Yeah.
stage from everyone's point of view.
Uh huh.
But like from my own point of view, when I look at myself, I'm just like, I'm so small.
Same. Same. I feel that 100%. 100%. I'm like looking at stage shots and I'm like, nope, I look tiny here. I've got holes here, here, and here. I look small. Like, this is not good. This is not good. This one looks okay. But this one is like a perfect angle, right? Like, it just doesn't highlight these other weaknesses. So, solid, man. Well, it's a good time talking to you as always. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. Um, Paul, I'll catch you later, dude.
All right, man. You have a good one.